book YouTube drama, fanfiction theft, and why publishing is turning into a war zone. Hi, I'm Rachel, an indie author, your average book talk consumer, and defender of insane stories. Today we're spiraling through the newest disaster tearing apart the book world and why I think AI is only making it worse. So, it turns out fanfiction isn't just holding our hats hostage, some people are plagiarizing it into bestsellers. Yikes. When I started planning this podcast episode, I thought we were going to talk about that YouTube video that accuses an author of plagiarizing 3 of her fanfics onto published romance books, but boy oh boy, the spin this has spun. Hold on to your hats, folks, because oh god. So let's start at the beginning. I came across a video that did not have insane amounts of engagement. I believe to be about a YouTuber discussing an author stealing her own fanfiction and turning it into published works. But as I dive deeper into this, I realized she was actually referring to a Reddit thread. Now, as with everything on Reddit, you can't believe it. But this one, they came bearing proof. Apparently, a fanfiction author realized that a well-known full-fledged author which had tons of really popular books, some of which were shared online and on threads like Reddit of people hailing the books as good and recommending it, realized that these books were actually her own fanfiction. This author had taken her fanfiction, chopped and changed things, renamed characters, maybe shifted the scenarios just a little bit, just enough so it wasn't obviously fanfiction, and then just published the works. And as if that's not bad enough, once this Reddit came out in public, people got and thought, this author has so many works published, I wonder if she plagiarized anything else. They were right to look. Because as of recording this, so far there's been 12 fanfiction pieces by 10 different authors that have been plagiarized by this same person. And the reason why I'm not calling the person who stole all these books by name is because I don't want to get sued. I am a little fish in a big pond. I cannot afford a lawsuit right now. But I can drop a Reddit thread in the show notes, and I will, so you can have a look at that yourself. And my first reaction upon diving into this was, wow, this is a lot more dramatic than just Ali Hazelwood saying she doesn't like a character. A lot of more people should be talking about this, shouldn't they? Apparently not. Apparently we're way more focused on the fact that somebody just doesn't like a character than the fact that there's independent authors out there getting their work stolen. Not to mention, it's just not getting your fanfiction stolen. As an author, if you're making fanfiction, you're doing it for fun. You're not going to be able to actually sell your works because that'd be considered like intellectual property theft. So you're genuinely just writing insanely good novels for the fun of it, right? But for somebody to come in and rework your stuff and then sell it, whatever they make is profit. It's all theirs. You're not owed a single damn thing for that, even though that's your work. And it is so hard to prove, unless you're a fully established author, that you have been plagiarized. And even if you can prove that, even if all of these fanfic authors banded together and tried to, put a lawsuit in place, lawsuits are so complicated. They're so expensive. They can drag on for years and years and years. Not to mention that you're probably talking about multiple jurisdictions. So you might have authors in America, authors in the UK, or even if everybody involved is in America, different states have different laws. So it's not as simple as coming out and saying, yeah, you stole my book, now give me all the profits for stealing my book. And I wish it wasn't the case. And it's just another way where being a small independent author gets you shafted. I don't think I can say that word, but yeah. And then, in the space of 1 month, less than 30 calendar days, we've had another plagiarism scandal. In this case, it is between 2 published books. So R.J. Lewis published a book called Obsessed. It was mildly successful. I would say anything's more successful than my books that have 5 reviews, everything, beats that. Anyway, R.J. Lewis publishes Obsessed. I think it's 9 years ago. The book is not new, okay? And lo and behold, another author takes this book and plagiarizes it. Scenes are word by word there, sentence by sentence, but again, what do? They switch the names, they switch a couple of elements, and then repackage it, which is absolutely bonkers that we can do this. And before anyone's sometimes tropes are the same or certain expressions are the same and maybe everybody's up in arms for little details. No. There's a difference between saying, oh yeah, these 2 books have the same trope, but they're completely different books. There's a difference between saying, oh yeah, in this book, the character named Alessandro says, "You're mine," he growled. And in this other book, a character named Alesso instead of Alessandro does the same. Those are common expressions, those are common names, especially if you read like a lot of mafia romance. That's not plagiarism. What we're discussing is like a word by word stuff. We're discussing like entire scenarios being plucked out, copy pasted. And the fact that this has happened so fast is obviously, to me, outrageous. And what we've had for a long time is like, oh yeah, well, you have like plagiarism checkers, right? So surely a plagiarism checker would work. Even though plagiarism checkers were never great, maybe there was a time where they could have been helpful. But when we bring AI into the mix, that gets even harder to distinguish. Use this as a cautionary advice for any authors using generative AI to write their books. Where do you think AI gets the content from? It gets the content from a choir of voices, from tons of different published books. If you say you want your book in a certain specific tone, what AI is going to do is going to go out onto the internet, because it has access to millions and millions of works, and going to pick the books, the sentences, the phrases, and the authors that have a tone similar to what you're looking for. And if it can do that for you, and give you the tone that you want, I'm sorry, you're basically plagiarizing from other author. You are also putting yourself in a position where somebody reads your book, reads your work, or even just gets inspired by it, goes on to Gen AI, says, I have this idea because, like, you inspired me to talk about this topic, write it. Or somebody that has never read your books has an idea similar to yours, goes on to Gen AI, asks it to write, and now you've got two basically identical books, basically with the same tone of voice. Plagiarism is not even something that you can use to defend yourself anymore. And I find it quite difficult to defend the use of generative AI in books. I've talked about it before on my Substack. I called it something like, maybe my books suck right now, but at least I wrote them. I'll leave that in the show notes if you want to read it, because I dive deeper into it. But I feel like, as somebody who grew up with fanfiction.net and AO3, you had so many authors that were learning. And like, the fics were not good sometimes, but the concepts were so good that they kept you hooked. How did these people come up with those concepts? From their own brain. And these things had millions of reads, even though they were not technically the best writing. So I think if you're an author who is young, or who is just starting, or who always had these concepts in your mind, and you're like, well, maybe I'll just ask AI on how to make it better, on how to structure it right, you are losing the essence. I can assure you that no matter what you hear out there right now, people would prefer a million times a story that is written with a unique concept, with unique twists, with maybe a weird-ass formatting, than having something that is technically correct, but it sounds like a replica of what everybody's already heard before, with the perfect little pacing and the perfect little blah blah blah. Nobody wants that. If we wanted perfect little books, then oh my god, we'd all be bored. Why do you think fanfiction exists? Where did it come from? It came from the weird concepts. It came from people reading normal-ass stories that had the perfect pacing and the perfect everything and saying, let's make this messy. Let's turn this into absolute chaos. And everybody loved it. Tons of websites just dedicated to people sharing their insane, creative work. Wherever you are in your journey, if I could force you to just prioritize one thing, I would absolutely force everyone to prioritize their creativity. That, and to write everything that comes to their minds, which are very much next to each other in terms of process. I'm telling you right now, if you are like me and you have tons of conversations in your head and tons of different scenarios, you pull up that Google Docs and just write it down. Just write it down right now. Because those are stories in the making. You don't realize it yet, but all these disparate thoughts, they can be strung together in something interesting, and you just have to give yourself the chance to put them out there. And you have to give yourself the chance to get good. Which brings me right back to this whole issue of plagiarism. I don't think that any of these authors that are plagiarizing other people genuinely believe in their skill and genuinely believe in their own creativity. Because if they did, if they believed in themselves, they would have never felt the need to copy somebody else. And that to me is the biggest loss to humanity of all, because we just become carbon copies of each other. Literature is boiled down to random tropes that are all the same, and then we just lose the spark. We lose the fun. The fun is why we started reading and writing in the first place. Not to mention that watching all of these plagiarism scandals happen, not only does it ethically outrage me for very obvious reasons, it puts people in the self-publishing space in such a horrible position, because suddenly you have to figure out a way to defend yourself without proof. You have to find a way to prove that you actually wrote your books, that you actually didn't use AI and you actually didn't plagiarize, without having a body of work before you to prove yourself. And isn't that insane? You as a new author do not have enough proof so far to prove that you are as good as you are. And if that's a concern that you have as well, if you're like, well, I don't use generative AI, and how do I prove that? You build messily in public, constantly. The more you write and the more concepts you put out there and the more books and short stories you publish, the more you're building your body of work, the more you're proving and showing people, look, come grow with me, see my writing evolve, see how I become the author that I want to be one day. Because one day we all want to be incredible writers like Edgar Allan Poe, but it takes a while to get there. Nobody came out of the womb being an incredible author. The people that you look up to, they wrote book after book after book until they wrote something amazing that was worth putting out there. So write your books in public, put them out there. Remember that you can publish a book on Amazon for free. Amazon, Kindle. I'm not saying you should. Read the fine print. But I'm saying you can. I'm saying you can create an account on Substack right now, and you can start talking about your dreams, and you can start talking about your process. You can put something out there right now that not only is it building a repertoire for you, it's getting people to know you, it's getting people involved in your story. And God forbid, should anyone come out of the woodwork, take your stuff, and claim it's theirs, you have all this proof behind you to say, no, here's 3 years of me writing. Here's the hundreds of dozens of stories and essays that I put out there. And you can tell that my voice is in every single one of them. So you can tell that this book is mine. And you can tell that this book came first, not yours. And I understand that that sounds really, really scary. That you might feel really behind starting right now, whether it's because other people have been doing it for longer or because they're older than you and you're just not as successful. But I really would like to remind you that you're building your future while other people are settling into theirs. What I mean by this is, number one, when I'm at work as somebody that's in their mid-20s and I see people who have the same skill set as me in higher positions, I also get that nagging comparison feeling of why are they all got it together and I don't? Because they're settling into their future. What they are doing right now is what they're going to do in their 30s, their 40s, their 50s. This is the career path for them. This is not the career path for me. I want to be an author. I want to make books. I want to keep writing till my dying breath. I want to keep making videos. I want to keep making content. So obviously I'm not settling into a career by the same level as theirs. That's not going to happen. So how can I compare myself to people who have found their future when I am still working towards mine? And the other interpretation that you can have here is when you look at other people who are completely established authors, even if they are younger than you, and you start thinking, oh my God, how are they so far ahead? And why didn't I start sooner? And why am I not at their level? They've had time. They are settling into the future, and they went through exactly the same things as you're going through right now. You're just not seeing it. They've laid out the foundations, and now they're living in the house. Meanwhile, you're building the house and being like, well, why am I not there? Because you have to build the house to get there. I'm using a lot of metaphors here. I hope y'all are following. And I also hope this is bringing you a little bit of comfort. And if me talking about these topics has brought you some comfort, or at least a little bit of entertainment, I would ask you to please leave a 5-star rating on the podcast in whatever platform you're listening to it. As a new podcast, it is really hard to get in front of new people, so those 5-star ratings really, really help. I will leave the Reddit thread and the Substack post on generative AI and my more concise thoughts in the show notes, and I'll see you next week.